So I'm here to talk about a build that I'm trying out for the upcoming season. You're going to see a lot of interactions in this clip. I'm not casting storm totems, but they're constantly being recast. I'm using Earthquake with a 10 storm stack spender, and my stacks are sitting really high. Here, I'm going to cast Earthquake 3 times and still have storm stacks left. What's going on? This is the idea of my storm stack spender. You have infinite storm stacks, and you can spend them at will and output a ton of damage. And this is basically an infinite loop. You won't run out of storm stacks. So what's causing this interaction? I am using Earthquake to output 14 hits per cast. These 14 hits are used to resummon Thorn Totems. Thorn Totem, when it is resummoned, summons 5 totems, not 1. If you have Grove Mine selected, when Thorn Totem is resummoned or unsummoned, each totem creates a burst. So this is 5 hits. And then each totem, when they are summoned, automatically just fires. That's the first thing they do. They fire a hit. So each time I summon them, I summon 10 hits from Thorn Totems. These Thorn Totem hits create stacks of storm stacks at about 1/4. So I'm creating like 2 or more storm stacks. And each hit has, in my current gear setup, about a 1/5 chance of resummoning these. So I am resummoning Thorn Totems almost at least 3 times, like a bare minimum of 3 times. This creates 30 hits, thereabouts. These 30 hits translate into about 7 storm stacks, give or take. In some cases, this will be a lot more. Like if there's a bunch of enemies around, I'm going to create a ton more hits. And that's going to create a ton of storm stacks. And that's when you see, like, my storm stacks won't even budge. If there's a lot of enemies around, won't budge. And so this is just a loop. This is an infinite loop. You cast Earthquake. Earthquake spends storm stacks, which resummon Thorn Totems, which gives us storm stacks, which allow us to deal a ton of damage. And you can just do this infinitely. Why wasn't this interaction, to my knowledge, hasn't really been abused? Because, quite frankly, Friends of the Tempest was bugged. It just didn't work at all. Why is this getting better in the new patch? Well, in the new patch, Avalanche becomes a lot more powerful. It's going to deal, I think, just more damage in general. But also, we will be able to generate storm stacks after we cast Earthquake without having to cast Gathering Storm. We won't have to do that. Earthquake will trigger boulders, and these boulders will have a 45% chance of creating Gathering Storm stacks. If there's enough enemies around, we might create a ton of boulders. So we can get up to some fun. Like the clear on this build is going to be insane. The only issues that are stopping this from being really powerful are mana, because we're using Earthquake and spending a bunch of mana, and the ability to not run out of storm stacks. Prior to this, it was really tough to use because you could run out of Earthquake, could run you out of storm stacks, and then you'd have to use Gathering Storm to recreate the storm stacks. While you weren't creating storm stacks, you had an issue because you wouldn't resummon Thorn Totems quite fast, and so you had to kind of restart this. This seems like a really powerful interaction, and this is kind of a version of this is what I'm going to probably start. Currently in this build, I have everything converted to physical, and so you'll be able to scale straight physical damage and spell damage to deal just a ton of, like a ton. Spell hit damage, like this is all hit. This is all hit. We'll have a ton of armor shred with this type of build. Should be a lot of fun. Like this should be very, very powerful. Another version, this one's a little bit different. You can go straight lightning and basically have the same results. In this case, I'm not spec'd into Maelstrom. And I'm using Storm Totem to generate my stacks. Storm Totem has always been able to generate the stacks pretty efficiently. And with Storm Crows, this should work out pretty well. This is kind of what I'll probably use to level. One of the issues with this build is it doesn't really come online until you're basically into monoliths. You're basically like finishing up monoliths, because for the Avalanche version, you need 5 skills, and you need them pretty close to... You need them pretty close to 20. You can probably get away with this. I think this will kind of work. So, but this is 15. This is 15, and I don't really think this will work at all unless you have about 15 and everything. So you'll basically be in pretty close to the campaign competing before this build comes online. So you need something which will get you there. These 3 skills don't work at all. Really? Like, this is not going to work as a leveling build, I don't think. So, how do we get there? I'm going to be trying this tomorrow, starting out with Gathering Storm, Summon Thorn Totem, and Storm Crows. And then at around level 35, Earthquake comes online, and we can get this party started. And then as Avalanche comes online, we can start having some fun. As far as some variants, just to talk about them, there is a normal variant, like this is just the normal physical variant, and probably the most straightforward. You can do a cold variant, which is also very straightforward. And you can do a lightning variant. The lightning variant is a little tricky. It's not clear to me if I can just use Storm Totem here. So, to summarize, we use Earthquake to create a bunch of hits. These hits resummon Thorn Totems. These Thorn Totems create a bunch of minion hits, which create a bunch of storm stacks, which we spend with Earthquake. This loop is continuous. The only limiting factors are mana and enemies. How do we abuse this for a lot of damage? We will use ailments for the most part. specifically shred armor, bleed, or frostbite. And we can also scale spell damage because Gathering Storm, Earthquake, and Avalanche are all spell damage. So elemental, physical, whatever tag damage will work. Spell damage, because these are all hits, is a good way of scaling these. And then adding an ailment. For the physical, adding bleed should add a fair amount of damage. For cold, frostbite, mostly applied via shock, is going to be important, and then picking up nodes in the tree. For lightning, we're just going for lightning pen and scaling our hits very high using spell damage. That's really all. I hope you guys learned something. If you guys have any questions, by all means, hit me up either in the Reddit thread or in the comments. I hope you guys have a wonderful league start. Tomorrow I will be doing a test run. Otherwise, I guess now we will return to Zero Friends Online.